You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Floors Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to another episode of Wayback Wednesday. I'm your host, Randy Adcock. So good you could join us tonight. Got a lot of things to cover tonight, got a lot of pictures to share with you. And as usual, we're going to kind of dovetail and circle back to paraphrase a common expression here lately to last week's show. And I wanted to clarify a couple things. First of all, big thank you and shout out to Eric Dawson, who brought some new information to my attention since last week's show, and actually pointed out something that I was in error in a picture that we showed last week. So we're going to show that picture again tonight, and we're going to correct that error. Not a big one, but just if you remember, we had the picture of the first visitors to the Carlton House Motel and restaurant, and I mistakenly had misidentified Carlton Noel's wife in that picture. So we'll get to that in a few minutes, and we'll get all that straightened out. Had a caller last week that asked about moving to Nash-Edgecombe County line. And so I knew about when that move took place, but I also knew there was a story behind that. And so I did some research this week, and I've got some information to share with you, some pictures, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and what happened and what transpired, and hopefully kind of clear up some things. You know, that move, 150 years since it took place, is still causing controversy. As recently as 2 years ago, right here in Rocky Mount, there was a protest, if you will, a gathering of some folks downtown Rocky Mount. Actually, they were down by the mill, by Rocky Mount Mill. And they were protesting what happened 150 years ago with the move of the county line. And, you know, we'll leave the politics out of this. I'm not particularly interested in delving into the politics of what happened. Obviously, there was some politics involved. That usually is the case in something like this. But there was more to the story than what a lot of us realize and a lot of us know about. And so I'll share that with you coming up here very shortly as well. Also took a trip out to Dorchester today and had a nice visit with Bruce Smith out there at Smith's Red and White. Many of you know Bruce and the fine folks there at Smith's Red and White. But Bruce has, those that may not be aware of this, Bruce has bought the old brick building across the street from his store. My understanding from talking to Bruce is that he tried to buy the old brick building to the left and the old white building to the right, both of which were stores many years ago. And so anyway, he was able to buy the brick building, was not able to buy the old white building, and so I'm not sure what the plans are over there. We didn't really talk about plans for those buildings, but it did share some history about those two buildings, and we'll get to that in a little bit too. So without further ado, I think I want to jump into the first picture. Lee, if you would, pull up that first picture, and this is one that we shared last week on last week's show. And if you remember, we talked about the Carlton House Motel and Restaurant, opened in 1961, and the caption just plainly says, Ms. Carlton Noel and first customers, Mr. and Mrs. Jerry Green. And I mistakenly referred to Miss Noel as Virginia Noel. And so just to clarify for a moment, if you remember also from last week's show, Carlton Noel's first wife, Virginia Noel, actually passed away in 1955. And literally the very next year, he remarried, and he married a lady by the name of Annie Holt. And so anyway, obviously in 1961, this could not have been Virginia Noel, as I mistakenly said last week. This would have in fact been the second Mrs. Carlton Noel, and her name was Annie Holt originally. But anyway, I just want to clarify that, and thank you, Eric, for bringing it to my attention. I would have been fine if I'd have just read the caption, but I had to insert my own little 2 cents worth, and that's what got me in trouble. So anyway, we've got that cleared up. And you know, I did a little more research since last week's show about not only the Carlton House and Body Knoll and the people who were instrumental in bringing that whole business along over the years, and uncovered a few things that frankly I was not aware of. And Eric also mentioned to me that back in the 60s, there was a hotel, if you will, up in Virginia Beach that was a favorite getaway place for many of Rocky Mount citizens. And So I went in search of trying to find that. Eric knew, by his own admission, very little about it, other than it was kind of a swanky place. It was in Virginia Beach, and it was called the Homestead. So with that little bit of information, I took off in search of to see if I could find anything about this hotel in Virginia Beach that was a favorite getaway for people around here. And so, in fact, I was able to find a little bit about information about it. So Lee, if you would, let's pull up this next picture. And this is actually a postcard from 1961. And this is the Homestead. It's a little blurry there, but it actually says Homestead right on the front of the building there. And it was a beachfront property, from what I understand, very swanky. And it was actually owned, I'm not sure if they had it built or bought it after it was built, but Nick Body and his wife actually owned the place. And this particular postcard, I saw a couple of different instances of it. You can actually buy it. It's for sale on eBay, I think is where I saw it first. But in any case, the next picture, if you would, Lee, is just the back. Let's go ahead and just show the back of the postcard. And this is actually, again, from 1961. And this Miss, looks like Aldra or Ardeth, maybe Ardeth Newport, from Rocky River, Ohio, came down and stayed at Virginia Beach. This is dated August 21st of 1961. And I can't read or write it out. Like I said, I'm having 10 days here to top off before summer, before September 5 comes along. Hope you got some rest, Louise. Okay, so anyway, this was the back of the postcard. And like I said, there's actually a couple of postcards out there, a couple of variations of this same postcard, I should say, that I saw for sale on eBay. Kind of pricey, like $8-9 a pop, actually. And then I also found where there were advertisements for this hotel, believe it or not, in several newspapers, but certainly in the News and Observer. I did not, strangely enough, I did not find any advertisements in the Rocky Mount paper. But Lee, if you go ahead and pull that next picture up, the News and Observer in both 1960, and this is a 1960 ad that appeared in the News and Observer from May of 1960. And you see, this is just basically the same image as what's on that postcard. It's just black and white, of course, because back then the newspaper couldn't print color pictures. But it says, it's hard for me to read here. You'll love the home-like atmosphere and the fine food, air-conditioned dining room, television, lounge, recreation room. And as I said, this was on in Virginia Beach. It was called the Homestead. I'm not sure what happened to this place. I'm not sure if the building is even still there. There is a Homestead Drive, I think it is, or Homestead Road in Virginia Beach. But I couldn't find any reference to this particular place after 1961. Let me get this call here. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was talking to Tracy Thompson down there at the library yesterday, and there's an article that was in the Telegram on April the 2nd of 1961 when the Carlton house initially opened. And it gave reference to that place having ties to Nick Body's mother, who was a Mayo from Tarba.
Mm-hmm.
He had an older sister named Annie. And that place, I think, had ties long ago to the Mayo family in Tarba, North Carolina, who had the Mayo knitting mills and farming operations in Edgecombe County. Nick Body's wife, her name was Betsy Ann Bunting before she married the first time, and then she married Nick Body. But Nick and Body and his wife used to go up there in the mid-1950s and look after that place. But it had its tie, that place of business had its ties back to the Mayo family in Tarba, North Carolina.
So that's probably how it came.
It's in an article in the Telegram with Carlton Noel giving those accreditations to the fact that Carlton Noel's second wife was part owner and manager of that place, and Carlton Noel's second wife was a Mayo from Tarver. She was a sister to Nick and Mayo Body's mother.
Gotcha. Okay.
Got it?
I got it. Okay, buddy. Thank you.
Right.
All right. So anyway, like I say, this was a 1960 ad that appeared in a News and Observer in May of 1960. And then the very next picture, Lee, if you want to go to this next picture, it's the same picture. They just ran the same thing again the following year in 1961 with a slight change. It's the same picture and a little bit of change in the actual. Go ahead, Lee, and pull that next picture up. There you go. They added a couple things: beach club and golf club privileges for our guests, on-premises parking. I think it was the added line there. And you see down below it says Nick Body Manager. I read somewhere that I think there was actually another. Just before I get sidetracked here, there's a Homestead Inn up in the Stanton, Virginia area. And it's an old hotel up there near the hot springs. Many of you are probably familiar with the hot springs in western part of Virginia, up in the hilly section up there. But anyway, there was a lot of confusion apparently at one time or another. And so I read where this place was actually referred to in some circles as the Homestead by the Sea, to differentiate it from the homestead up in the western part of the state of Virginia. So anyway, this was the hotel, kind of a swanky place, and I even saw an advertisement that made a reference to a place where Tar Heels love to go in Virginia to go to the beach. So kind of interesting advertising, a marketing ploy there, I guess you'd say. But anyway, okay, we got one more little tidbit on this. Lee, if you would, let's pull that next. This is just a little blip that appeared, and this was actually in a newspaper from Kentucky, I believe it was, from August of 1961. This lady, Miss Jane Swats of 104 Beverly Court. I first thought it was Rocky Mount, and then I got to reading further, and I realized it was not. She was from, like I say, I think it was Kentucky. But she went down and was a visitor there, and it says she was a guest of Mr. and Mrs. Nick Body at the Homestead. So, but anyway, I'm still finding my way around and learning more about this newspapers.com website. Sometimes a simple search change and how you word your search phrases can make all the difference in the world in whether or not you find anything, and if you do, how much content you do find. Case in point was I had looked high and low, tried to find an obituary for Carlton Noel, and try as I might, I could not find an obituary until I happened to realize that I was misspelling his name. And I actually have seen the name Carlton misspelled multiple times in multiple newspapers, but the actual spelling of Mr. Carlton's name, Mr. Noel's name, was Carleton, and that E is left out of a lot of places. It's left out of a lot of articles and newspaper clippings and so forth. But of course, when I realized that I had misspelled name, I forgot to put the E in there. I put the E in, and I was able to find an obituary. We'll get to that a little bit later on too. So anyway, let's go ahead and leave. This next picture is just a picture of Nick and Mayo Body. Obviously, they were fairly young in this picture here. I would guess this was probably sometime in the early 1960s. They were just getting off the ground, so to speak, with their business ventures. And these gentlemen certainly had a very successful run at business, not only here in Rocky Mount, but all over the country, where they chose to open restaurants and endeavor to conduct business. And one of the things I learned about them was that, in the next picture, Lee will kind of give us a little better indication of this, they actually owned the Zip Mart, and I didn't ever know that. They used to be one of my hangouts as a kid. Those that remember the Zip Mart up there at the intersection of Sunset Avenue and Winstead Avenue, back in the 70s, that was a hangout, if you will, In fact, those of us that used to cruise Sunset Avenue would ride from the Zip Market in Inglewood all the way over to Meadowbrook and back and forth. I know that same course had been ridden for 2 or 3 generations at least. I've heard tell of people in the 50s and 60s doing the same thing, but certainly those of us in the 70s that rode up and down the road, especially on Friday and Saturday night, we'd go from the Zip Market over in Inglewood all the way over to Meadowbrook over on the Edgecombe side of town and back again. But I didn't know at the time that the Body family, or Body Knoll Enterprise, I should say, actually started the Zip Mart. And so, that was a very successful chain too for a number of years. I also found it interesting that in 1957, and we're going back just a little bit here, but an article I stumbled across in 1957, apparently there was a group that decorated Mr. and Mrs. Noel's home over in West Haven for Christmas. And they were actually allowing people to come into their home, and this is something you would never hear about today, wouldn't be considered, I don't think, but the public apparently was able to go in and tour their home, or at least, I'm not sure how much entry they had into the home. It may have just been certain sections of the home. But the next picture, Lee, if you go ahead and pull that up for us, this is from 1957. And it says the home of Mr. and Mrs. W. Carlton Noel will be decorated in the early American tradition of Christmas, in keeping with the Williamsburg tradition of the house, by the Rocky Mount Garden Club for its annual Christmas house, and will be open on Thursday. So the garden club and the members of the garden club would get together, and they would go and decorate houses. And this year, 1957, the house that was chosen to be decorated for Christmas was Mr. and Mrs. Carlton Noel. And you see it says the house will be open. So again, I'm not sure how much access the public had throughout the home, and my guess is it was probably fairly limited. But still, it's something that you just wouldn't think about even being done today. And I thought that was kind of surprising. So actually, Lee, I tell you what, let's go ahead, bring it back to me if you would. We've got a few more pictures and a few more things to go over about Body Knoll and Nick and Mayo Body and Carlton Noel, and I want to share those with you, and then we're going to move on to the county line move, and we'll get into all that when we come back from the break. So if you need to get yourself a little snack or bathroom break, go ahead and take a little business now, and we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors. Thank you.
Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flores Glass and Mirror Company. Servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
Hello, I'm Gus Tullis with Gus Tullis Insurance, and I'm here to talk to you about the extended open enrollment period for the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare. Enrollment is available to anyone under age 65. Pre-existing conditions will not disqualify you, and I'm here to inform you of the subsidy that can be available to you based on your household income. You may not even be aware of the potential to improve your current subsidy. You need to take action because the benefits are available if you enroll between now and the August 15th deadline. Now I'd like to take a moment and share with you the annual household income chart. For example, this income chart shows a household of one earning a minimum annual income of $12,800 $760 up to $51,040 and possibly more would qualify for a subsidy. Over the last 3 days, I've helped several folks qualify and sign up for the Obamacare plan. This could be you. To find out if you qualify for a general subsidy, call Gus Tullis Insurance at 252-937-6913. Your subsidy is waiting, but the August 15th deadline is fast approaching. Call me today at 252-937-6913.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flora's Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
And we're back. Folks, you're just tuning in. You're watching Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcock. So glad you could be with us tonight. Before the break, we were talking about Body Noel Enterprises and Mr. Carlton Noel, and certainly Mayo and Nick Body, and the enterprises that those three gentlemen, and they didn't do it alone, obviously. They had some really good people working with them over the years. But certainly Carlton Noel and Nick and Mayo Body were instrumental in putting a lot of people to work in Rocky Mountain and all up and down the East Coast for that matter. And they were just, they epitomized the word successful business people. We can all be proud of what they accomplished here in Rocky Mountain and throughout the area. In 1982, Body Noel moved into their new operation center, the new building. It was state of the art, a really, really nice place. I've had the occasion to go in that building once or twice over the years, and it was just first class, really, really nice, just modern, up to date. It's hard to believe it's been over 30 years now since it's been open. But anyway, Lee, if you would, just pull this next page. This is actually the article that appeared in the Rocky Mountain Telegram December 19th of 1982. And I'm going to read the whole thing. It's fairly short, though. It says, Body Noel Enterprises opened its new corporate offices on Hunter Hill Road Friday with a speech by former band leader and television star Kay Kaiser, followed by a cake cutting. Before the cake cutting, Mayo and Nick Body and members of the Noel family unveiled a bust of W. Carlton Noel, the third member of the original B&E membership when it was incorporated in 1962. And it goes on to, it mentions Mayor Fred Turnage was there, had given a speech. Jack Lockery, who was then president, chief executive officer of Hardee's Food Systems, said following the ceremonies, the doors were open to approximately 2,500 invited guests who toured the three-story building and enjoyed hors d'oeuvres and cocktails. As the ceremonies continued, Mayo and Nick Body announced donations of $500 to Tri-County Industries and to the YMCA. So again, this was a big deal, beautiful new building, kind of a testament to the success of these three gentlemen and what they were able to accomplish in literally a little over 20 years' time, from 1962 until 1982. In that 20-year time frame, they literally built what some could rightfully call an empire. This next picture, Lee, if you would go ahead and let's pull that next one up. This next picture is a little, I apologize, a little grainy. Again, these telegram pictures are not the best in the world. The top part of that picture is the actual building itself, or at least a picture of it. And the bottom part is the cake cutting and some of the dignitaries that were there. And again, this was in December of 1982 at the opening of the new corporate headquarters for Body Noel Enterprises off Hunter Hill Road here in Rocky Mountain. Sadly, both Nick and Mayo, as well as their uncle Carlton Noel, have all passed away now. The next picture, Lee, if you'll pull that up for us, this is actually the obituary for Nick Body, who passed away December 2nd, 2011. He was 84, and again, his contributions to the world of business and to the local economy, and not just the local economy. As I said, they were, at one time, Body Noel was one of the biggest franchisees of Hardee's in the country, if not the biggest. I've heard numbers, I'm not exactly sure which is accurate. I've heard numbers of over 300 franchisees, but in any case, there were jobs that were created by these gentlemen all up and down eastern United States. And so, sadly, Nick will be missed for many years to come, obviously. The next picture, Lee, if you would, is Mayo. When Mayo died, he died in 2020. He was 90 when he died. And again, you just can't overstate the contribution these two gentlemen made to this area and to Eastern North Carolina in particular. Just two really outstanding citizens and really contribute a lot to this area. And finally, lead the next picture if you would, Carlton Noel. And I had looked, as I said at the top of the show, I looked, could not find an obituary of this man. I said, I know as prominent a businessman as he was, there's got to be an obituary. And what I realized after literally digging for a couple of days without being able to find anything was that I was spelling his name wrong. And in all fairness, I've seen his name misspelled 100 times in lots of different articles and documents and things. But his full name was Walter Carlton Noel, and Carlton was spelled Carleton. And as soon as I put that E in there, boom, up comes all kind of information, articles, newspaper articles, and write-ups. But this was an obituary, and again, he died in April of 1979. Oddly enough, he was born in Danville, Virginia, moved to Rocky Mount in 1919, had a very successful run in the tobacco industry, partnering with his nephews to create Mighty Noel Enterprises, the Carlton House Motel and Restaurant. Just a success at everything he ever touched. And then when he died, the next picture, Lee, if you would, I would have thought he'd have been buried up. Oh, I must have forgot to put that on. Do you see a 14A anywhere, Lee, in that list of pictures? I may have neglected to put it on the flash drive. I actually did have a picture of his grave, and if you don't see it, it's okay. But Carlton Noel, it was actually buried in Danville, Virginia, in the I think it's called Green Hill Cemetery, where he was from originally. And so I thought it was kind of unusual that he spent the better part of his adult life here in and around the Rocky Mount area. And when he passed away, he was buried back in Danville, where he, I guess, was born. So anyway, so that kind of wraps up what I had uncovered and what I wanted to share about the Noel family and the Body family and what they were able to accomplish. I mentioned last week that someone called in and asked about moving the county line, the Nash County line, and Lee, what number picture are you on right there? What picture is that? Number 15? Okay, all right. This picture is from 1733. It's bottom right-hand corner of the screen. It says 1683 to 1729, but the actual picture itself, or the map, it's not a picture, obviously a drawing. But this drawing was done in 1733. It's from a collection of maps that cover from 1683 to 17, it says 29 here, but down below it does identify this map as being from 1733. But the area in gray, I want to call your attention to that. That area in gray is a lot of territory, obviously. It goes all the way to the Virginia state line and all the way down almost to the South Carolina line. But that area in gray, in this time, 1733, was Edgecombe County. At this time, there was no Nash County, there was no Warren County, there was no Halifax County, there was no Wilson County. All of those counties would eventually come out of that big chunk of gray you see there. But in 1733, that was Edgecombe County. So, okay, let's go to the next picture. This is 1808. I found this map, and right in the center there, you'll see, I don't know if you can zoom in, Lee, but right dead in the center of the screen there, and I always refer to Nash and Edgecombe counties, in my mind, they look like an open book. And so the left-hand side of the book is, of course, Nash County. The right-hand side of the book would be Edgecombe County. But that's how the counties looked in 1808 in this map that I found here. Now, keep in mind, in 1808, we're still a good 30 years or so before the railroad comes through. So you don't see any railroad tracks in this picture here because the railroad hadn't made it through here yet. And the first railroad that did come through here was the Wilmington and Weldon Railroad that actually ran a north-south track from up in Welland up near the Virginia line, all the way down to the coast near down by Wilmington down there. So at this point, there was no railroad track, and I'm not really sure how they come up with this original boundary between Nash County and Edgecombe County, but as you can see, it's a relatively straight line already. And again, this is in 1808. So now from here, in 1852, we're going to jump forward a bit because I'm trying to work in the maps I was able to find to kind of tell this story. But in 1852, there began discussions about creating a new county. And so, Lee, if you would, let's go to the next picture. And this, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. This was actually a blow up of the Nash and Edgecombe County I mentioned just a moment ago from 1808. And on the left-hand side there, just to the left of the white cross on your screen, the left in green kind of, that's the Nash County side. And of course, on the right-hand side, in more of a tannish brown color, is the Edgecombe side. But the point is, you see, it's a fairly straight line that separates the two counties. A little creek in it there, come out the Tar River, going a little bit more to the north and west. But for the most part, it's already pretty much a straight line from the southwest to the northeast, separating the two counties. Okay, now Lee, let's go to the next picture. This next picture jumps, I keep forgetting I've got these articles in here kind of spreading between all these pictures. And this is actually talking about, this is from from 1856, I believe it is. This is, let's see here, let me get my, here we go. Yeah, 1852 actually, excuse me. And I know you can't read it on your home screen, so I'm going to read a little bit of it for you, but this is actually a meeting that came together, and the purpose of this meeting was to discuss creating a new county. And so these gentlemen got together, portions of Nash County, Franklin County, Wake County, Johnson County, and these were all the county executives. There you go, a little easier to read there now. But basically what they did was they sat down and said, okay, we need another county. And so they decided they were going to take part of Nash County and part of Edgecombe County and create a new county, which would be Wilson County. So in 1852, the plans were put in place to create another county. So part of Nash and part of Edgecombe was taken out of the original county layout to create Wilson County. And of course, the city of Wilson is the county seat for Wilson County. And so just as the city of Nashville is a county seat for Nash County, and the city of Tarboro is the county seat for the county of Edgecombe. So in 1852, and I mention this because throughout the first 150 years or so of the existence of North Carolina as a colony and then as a state, it was quite common for counties to be chopped up and rearranged. Borders and county lines were shifted. New counties were created. And so it was not at all uncommon for counties to be altered, if you will, either by the need to create a new county, or the desire, I should say, to create a new county, or for some, and I'm sure, I won't dispute the fact that politics played a part in all this, and I'm sure there were times when it was politically advantageous for one group or another to shift the county line or to move the county line or to create a new county. And so, again, the point is as early as 1852, both Edgecombe and Nash County were already being chopped up to create Wilson County. Okay, so that being said there about the Wilson County. And by the way, while I was researching all this, I ran across, as you might imagine, there was quite a bit of discussion when talk first started being brought up about moving the county line at all, whether it was to create a new county or and for the record, the talk about moving the Nash County line from essentially the Tar River over to the railroad track began well before the move actually took place. As early as the 1860s, there was talk about moving that county line, and there were some good reasons, by the way. The people who wanted to move the county line had some legitimate arguments or points to be made about their desire to move the county line. Among them were, number one, there was a bridge over the Tar River at Rocky Mountain Mills, and on one side of that bridge was Edgecombe County, the other side of that bridge was Nash County. Well, obviously, periodically, the bridge had to be, maintained and repairs performed and upkeep and so forth. And Nash County was footing the bill for all those repairs. Edgecombe County, for one reason or another, didn't feel obligated to participate in that. They said, "No, that's not our bridge. We're not going to do anything to take care of it or to upkeep it or whatever." Well, as you might imagine, that caused a little bit of a frustration with the Nash County people who were having to, and it wasn't an every year recurring expense, but every few years, the bridge had to be repaired and maintenance done on it, and it was an ongoing expense that Edgecombe was just not interested in participating in. So anyway, fast forward a little bit. In 1856, Rocky Mountain Mills kind of got in the middle of all this. And in fact, I ran across an interesting article, and I don't know that this ever happened, but in September of 1856, in the Standard Weekly, which was a Raleigh newspaper, Rocky Mountain Mills was put up for sale. Now, this article primarily talks about what the mill does and its capabilities, and everything that the mill has got, everything that's included in the property. In addition to the cotton mill itself, there was a grist mill down there. Of course, there were the power plants that generate electricity, and that came a little bit later. There was the water power that drove the mills, what I should say. But in any case, there was a lot here that was being offered for sale. And so this was in 1856. And the mill, too, I think had some legitimate reasons for wanting to see the county line moved. But there was a tax base. The Rocky Mountain Mills in the 1850s, 1860s was the largest employer in the area. I mean, they employed a good number of people from Rocky Mount. And so by it all being in Edgecombe County, Nash County was losing out on some tax base, some revenue there they weren't receiving because the mill and all of those workers were all in Edgecombe County. So this actually kind of started the movement, and discussion started taking place. And in 1861, fast forward a little bit, in 1861, things kind of started moving, more and more discussion about moving the county line. And Lee, if you would, let's go to this next picture. And I wanted to show this because in 1861, keep in mind, the railroad hit here around 1838, 1839, I think it was. So by 1861, the railroad, the Wilmington and Weldon Railroad was in place, and it might be a little difficult to see there. That yellow dot you see on your screen represents Rocky Mount, and that darkened line that runs basically north-south from Weldon, there you go. You can say that's the railroad track. That's the Wilmington Weldon Railroad line, and it ran right through the middle of Rocky Mount. And so you notice too the spelling of the Tar River. It's T-A-U. That's from the old Indian spelling, I believe, or pronunciation, I should say. And you see Tarboro also is spelled T-A-U-B-O-R-O. I've also seen Tarboro spelled T-A-R-B-O-U-O-U-G-H. So a couple different spellings there. But this was in 1861, this map, and it shows the Wilmington Weldon Railroad and Rocky Mount clearly dead center of the railroad track there. I'll tell you what, Lee, I just realized it's time for our next commercial break. Bring it back to me. And when we come back from the break, folks, we're going to show you some more pictures, talk a little bit more about this county line move and what happened, what transpired, and we'll get all into that when we get back from this break. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flora's Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
Hello, I'm Gus Tullis with Gus Tullis Insurance, and I'm here to talk to you about the extended open enrollment period for the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare. Enrollment is available to anyone under age 65. Pre-existing conditions will not disqualify you, and I'm here to inform you of the subsidy that can be available to you based on your household income. You may not even be aware of the potential to improve your current subsidy. You need to take action because the benefits are available if you enroll between now and the August 15th deadline. Now I'd like to take a moment and share with you the annual household income chart. For example, this income chart shows a household of one earning a minimum annual income of $12,760 up to $51,040 and possibly more would qualify for a subsidy. Over the last 3 days, I've helped several folks qualify and sign up for the Obamacare plan. This could be you. To find out if you qualify for a general subsidy, call Gus Tullis Insurance at 252-937-6913. Your subsidy is waiting, but the August 15th deadline is fast approaching. Call me today at 252-937-6913.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flora's Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
And we're back. Before the break, we were talking about the discussions and the conflict about moving the county line, the Nash County, Edgecombe County line from the Rocky Mountain Mill there by the river there over to the railroad tracks in downtown Rocky Mountain. I want to read something to you here. As I said before, the actual move took place in 1871. The county line was moved officially in 1871. But as early as 1852, Nash and Edgecombe counties were already being chopped up and creating Wilson County. And in 1856, now this was a good 15, 16 years or better before the county line actually moved. But this is from there was a newspaper that was very popular back in the 1800s out of Raleigh called the North Carolina Standard. There was a weekly standard, there was a daily standard, but this comes from the North Carolina Standard in December the 19th of 1856. And this was a report from the legislature of North Carolina, of the Senate. And here's what it says. A bill was submitted to make the Wilmington and Weldon Railroad the line between Nash and Edgecombe counties, was read for a second time, and upon which Mr. Battle spoke. He said his constituents were anxious for this line to be established for just reasons. It would throw some of the people 3 miles nearer to court and give Nash a clean sweep of 24 miles in length. Nash County had been keeping up a bridge, I mentioned this a few moments ago, which was on the Edgecombe side, and this too was at the expense of many $100s appropriated about every 7 years by Nash from the county treasury. Mr. Battle proceeded to show that a difference of not more than 30 votes would be affected, thereby which would be given to Nash. Establishing this line would not be getting back what was taken from her in the creation of the county of Wilson, and then Nash would be better enabled to keep up the bridge referred to, which is a great thoroughfare. So again, Mr. Battle of Rocky Mountain Mills was certainly, he may have been one pushing this, but he was certainly one of the ones that were pushing it to get this line moved. And as I said, there were some very legitimate reasons for wanting to move the county line and kind of even out the revenue, the tax base, and everything that was associated not only with Rocky Mountain Mills and the commerce, but just to kind of make things a little more even. Now, as you might imagine, there were people who were opposed to this, and there were some very good reasons for them being opposed. In that was December 19th. December 20th, the very next day, 1856, Mr. Battle introduced a bill authorizing the magistrates of the county of Nash to establish and construct a toll bridge or toll ferry across the Tar River at Falls just above Battle's Mills in the county of Nash. Now, that was kind of a retaliatory move, I think. I don't know that there was any real desire or intent to do that, and I didn't find, at least not yet anyway, any reference to that toll bridge or toll ferry going into existence. So I don't think it ever came to be, but it kind of ruffled some feathers, I'm sure. And so, as you might imagine, tensions kind of began to get heated between the two counties, particularly the leaders. I think the common man probably kind of shrugged his shoulder and said, well, we have no control anyway, so let the ones at the top fight it out amongst themselves. And that's kind of what ensued. It was a bit of a battle. Fast forward a bit to December of 1968. Lee, if you would, let's go to the next picture. And this next picture is actually, okay. This is, what number you got here, Lee? 21, okay. I got ahead of myself, forgive me. This is actually a map of 1863, and as you can see, you see the county line there, and you see the Wilmington and Weldon Railroad, okay? You see Rocky Mountain dead in the center. The county line and the railroad run parallel for a while there, a little bit apart. And by the way, 1863, keep in mind, we're in the height of the Civil War here. The South was decimated by the Civil War in every measurable way. They were militarily defeated. They were economically crushed. The South was just, all throughout the South, and particularly every Confederate state that participated in the war, just took a tremendous beating in that war. And, sadly, it took years and decades, in fact, for the country to overcome that horrible war. And the South certainly was slower coming back than the North was. And so these little squabbles between communities and between counties, I guess, were to be expected in one sense, but there was also, sadly, there was admittedly a racial tension to all of this, to some degree anyway. Edgecombe County was predominantly black in the 1800s, as it is today. Nash County was predominantly white, as it is today. And so there were some that suggested this move, or this attempt to move the county line, was racially motivated, and they were trying to take away from the black leadership in Edgecombe County. Whether that was true, we don't know. I'm not going to attempt to read the mind of the minds of those that were in charge of making these decisions 150 years ago. Is it possible? Certainly it was. But the thing to remember is that this was not the first time either county had the county line adjusted. As I said earlier, Wilson County took parts of both Nash and Edgecombe. And frankly, Rocky Mount was not the only city affected by this move. The towns of Sharpsburg, Battleboro, Whitaker, Enfield, all of these towns that were on the railroad were all affected when that county line moved. And so, those that were on the eastern part of the railroad track had their reasons for not wanting to move the line. And I'm sure there were probably people on the Nash County or the Nash County side didn't want to move either, for one reason or another. But as typically happens, the politicians are the ones that make these things happen. And so Nash County had some pretty rough people fight. I won't say rough, that's not a good word. They had some pretty savvy people, that's a better word, better phrase. They had some savvy people on their side who were pushing the right buttons and making the right conversations with the right people in Raleigh to kind of push this thing along. And so what happened was the people in both Nash and Edgecombe County started kind of having their own little meetings amongst each other in trying to sway public opinion, with the hope that those that wanted to move the county line would be successful in getting the line moved. Those that did not want to move the line would be successful in getting everything halted. So Lee, if you would, let's go to the next picture. And And you're at picture, this is number what, Lee? I'm sorry, I lost my track. 22. Okay, all right. This was an application of the North Carolina General Assembly in December of 1868 to move the county line. Again, December 1868, the application was first put forth. Now keep in mind, there was already public meetings taking place about this. There was already discussions. There was already interest in making this happen as early as 1856, in fact. But by 1868, the applications were being submitted to the General Assembly, and the process was kind of in the works and started rolling. So let's go to the next picture, Lee. And this was 1869, same exact notice a year later, January of 1869. I'm sorry, it wasn't a year because December of 68 was the first one. This was literally the next month, January of 69. And it just says, notice hereby given, the application will be made to the General Assembly, now in session, to make the Wilmington and Weldon Railroad the line between Nash and Edgecombe County. Pretty much a formality, but this was something that was done just to kind of let the public know, hey, we're moving forward with this, and the plan is to get this thing pushed through and get the county line moved. And again, we're at 1869 now. Okay, Lee, let's go to the next picture. This is 1870. And it's a little difficult to read, I know, but in 1870, things really begun to get heated, and they actually, the local newspapers, particularly the Tarboro Southerner, and even far away as Raleigh News Observer in the Weekly Standard, I should say, began to voice opinions and try again to sway public opinion. That was a big thing. It was. They knew they were in for a fight, those that were opposed and those that were in favor, and so they actually began, it was kind of like the Speak Up column in the Rocky Mountain Telegram today. People would submit their argument, if you will, to the Telegram or to the papers, and they would, of course, print them. But in any case, this went back and forth. The Tarboro Southerner printed several articles and rebuttals, if you will. This one is worded, "Let it not be done," and I'm going to try to read the whole thing. It's kind of wordy, but basically what they're saying was, this is something that doesn't need to happen. We are against it. We don't think there's any just reasoning for moving the county line, so we are opposed to it in the strongest terms. And as I said, this went back and forth. There were rebuttals submitted for a couple of years, in fact. But this was from 1871 right here. So Lee, if you will, let's go to the next picture. And this is another article. And this was actually February of 1871. And you see the headline, "New County Line Defunct." And it said, "The people of Edgecombe will no doubt be glad to hear that the proposition to change the county line between Nash and Edgecombe County has been summarily killed in the legislature. This action is but just and is nothing more than what was to be expected at the hands of impartial legislators. It is to be hoped that this is the last we shall hear of this matter." So in February of 1871, many people thought this was a done deal. It was not going to happen. They're not going to move the county line. The county line's going to stay where it is at the Tar River, and we'll just forget it. Well, there were folks that were not going to just forget it, and so the next picture, Lee, if you would, and this was only a little bit later, and it said, this was actually in February of 1871, February 23rd to be exact. The prior picture was February the 2nd. This is February 23rd. And it says, "We are glad to see the House has paused in its determination to push through the new county line between Nash and Edgecombe. On Thursday, petitions were presented from the citizens of Edgecombe protesting against the passage of the bill, and the same was then recommitted to the Committee on Counties and Townships. It is understood that it will be finally disposed of tomorrow. In the meantime, several of the leading citizens of the county are in Raleigh for the purpose of using their influence against a measure so utterly distasteful and repugnant to every sense of just and right." As I said a minute ago, the leaders of the counties, both Edgecombe and Nash, were going to Raleigh. They were bending the ear of the politicians in Raleigh that had the political clout to make this thing happen or to prevent it from happening. And it appeared as though it was not going to happen. I mean, there was some pretty heavy hitters, if you will, from Edgecombe County that were going to Raleigh and saying, hey, we don't want this to happen. We don't want to see the line move. And so they thought they had this thing defeated. Okay, Lee, if you will, let's go to the next picture then. And this next picture, it says, the county line, in the Senate proceedings on Monday last, the following appears. Mr. Edwards moved to suspend the rules and take up report of conference committee on dividing line between Edgecombe and Nash and send message to the House transmitting said report, as that is the body to whom the report should first be presented. Motion prevailed. Our readers can make the most of it. So again, this is March 23rd, 1871, and it passed. And that's officially what happened to move the county line to where it is now. And Lee, if you would, the next picture, let's go ahead and pull that up right quick. We're about to run out of time here. It says, bill to change the county line between Edgecombe and Nash counties passed the House yesterday, and justly due to the able representation of a Dr. Drake, I think was his name, from Nash, who labored personally for its passage. Gets back to what I said a minute ago. The heavy hitters, the people, influential county leaders, from each county, both Edgecombe and Nash, went to Raleigh and really, let these legislators hear from them and say, hey, this is what we think. We don't want to see this happen. And as we all know now, it did happen. And in March of 1871, the county line was moved to where it is currently located. Lee, bring it back to me. Folks, we have run slam out of time. I had some more things I wanted to share with you. But do not despair. We will come back next week and we will address some of the pictures we didn't get to tonight. We'll show you some pictures of the Dorchester community. There's a couple more maps I wanted to get to. We'll get to those next week too. They were just kind of maps showing how things looked after the move, and we pretty much know that because it hadn't changed since then. So the move that took place in 1871 is still in place today. But anyway, we've run slam out of time. Folks, I want to thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I hope you learned something, and I appreciate you tuning in and watching the show each week. It's been my pleasure to be with you. Have yourselves a great week, folks. Take care of each other and be kind to each other, and we'll see you next week with more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flora's Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.